Hello there to all our viewers from Kenya and around the globe. Many thanks for joining us. I am Faith Kaulu coming to you live from Nairobi, Kenya, and this is The Press, a show where we get to take an exclusive and universal look at substantial issues affecting the public in matters politics, health, sports, arts and culture. But first of all, let us have a look at major stories making headlines across the world. The U.S. Department of State is now ordering for the exit of the non-emergency government staff and family members of the government employees from the Democratic Republic of Congo ahead of the presidential elections scheduled for the 23rd of December. On the other side, the government of Britain has advised its citizens against traveling to the country. The long-delayed elections has seen tension rise in the country, with the UN Human Rights Chief calling out to the Congolese authorities to halt the violence and inflammatory speech that is ongoing. Moving on, Mahatma Gandhi's statue has finally been removed from Ghana's most prestigious university following complaints that he was racist against Africans. The statue of the Indian independence leader that was installed at the University of Ghana located in Accra caused a lot of protest from students and faculty. The statue was unveiled 2 years ago by the Indian's former president Pranab Mukherjee to act as a symbol of ties between the two nations. And finally, The Nun, a newly released horror blockbuster movie, has been banned from cinemas by authorities in Lebanon. Local media in the country has reported that the Hollywood supernatural thriller has been considered as offensive to the Christian faith. Such censorship moves have had a direct and negative effect on cinema ticket sales in the country. This ban was announced in a time when the Warner Bros. Production was awaiting a screening license from the General Security Censorship Committee in the country. Well, so today right here at The Press, we're going to focus on the third story where we see The Nun, a Hollywood production, was banned from Lebanon for allegedly being offensive to the Christian faith. Now, why this discussion, you may ask? This is a very important topic for us to have right here in our country, especially after witnessing an uproar on social media after the ban of the Rafiki film recently. Now, this brings in the question, are the cultures and values in our country retrogressive when it comes to the freedom of art? Talk to me via social media handles, that is at GoldFaith, both on Facebook and on Twitter. And if I may just have a look at our Twitter handles, I see at Marion_Kesa, who says, yes, I think there's a place for cultural and a system of values when it comes to laying out a guideline for art and life in general. Some of them are backward while others are progressive. Well, right about now, we're going to have a look at a piece that was gathered by correspondent Edith Mbenesi, an exploration on the film industry in Kenya. Let us have a look.
It has been years since the government of Kenya formed the Kenya Film Commission, but according to players, it has done nothing to change the industry. With the commission coming into full function in mid-2006, for the aim of promoting the film industry locally as well as internationally, most Kenyans feel like this has not yet been achieved.
I feel like the bodies are not really as supportive as they should be, because sometimes we've seen some of the bodies banning Kenyan films, and that I feel really limits the creative minds out there, and some of them might even be scared to put out content. So the bodies have really been limiting the content creators to the place where they cannot be able to think out of the box, or whenever they do that, they feel, even if I did, what's really the reason for me to do that if my film may be banned or will not be accepted?
Even though stigmatization is a word that many people will use to describe the industry, a few efforts have been put in the art sector in our country. Take for instance the introduction of Machakos launching 2 years ago by the governor of Machakos County, Dr. Alfred Mutua, a platform that has seen the production of great films and content.
Well, yeah, I think so, because of recently there's been quite a change. In the past it was quite hard because the American movies, the Indian movies, the soap operas, the Nigerian movies were of much popularity than the Kenyan. But right now, we are embracing it. Like when you look at Citizen, most of the content is from Kenyan film, and there's been a lot of support. Like the View Sasa app, where you can now watch the Kenyan films there. There's YouTube there. More content creation is being given platform. We have seen the famous guys who do the Bedsitter Chronicles. We have seen Gisagu. We have seen, these kind of movies. So I think they've been supported, but though not really enough. So the people in charge, or the people who are responsible for it, should give it more airplay, more platform and more broad territories to be accepted more in the country.
With most Kenyans torn in between supporting local talent and easily accessing international films at their comfort, the struggle of the Kenyan film industry to rise and measure up seems to be far from over. Reporting for the press, my name is Edith Benesi.
Such informative piece right there. Now Edith Benesi joins us live from Machakos, Kenya, where she has been following up on this story. If you can clearly hear me, Edith, just let us know what are people saying concerning the film industry in our country.
Thank you very much, Faith Kaulu. I hear you clearly, and I'm standing right here in Machakos County, where I interacted with several people about this issue, the film industry. And now they say that they are not satisfied with Kenyan productions rather, because they believe that they are expensive, they're not accessible via internet or in other movie shops.
Alright, now just mentioning the different regulatory bodies that are there in the film industry, are citizens well aware and well conversed of these bodies and even the duties that they're supposed to protect?
Well, Faith Kaulu, here in Machakos, people do not seem to be aware of the different regulatory bodies that are concerned with censorship and production of different films, and that's why they do not care too much in purchasing Kenyan films, and that's why they prefer soap operas and other action movies from international arena.
Alright, thank you so much, Edith.
Thank you to Faith Kaulu. Back to you in studio.
Heading over to Twitter, @Joan Batari says, it doesn't make sense how the Rafiki film was banned, yet we can watch international movies with gay themes. Double standards is all our film regulations are operating on. Well, right here at the press, we don't just end it there. We take an in-depth look at matters as well as bringing different voices of reasoning to the table to help us understand and comprehend things better. So today on board, we have Miss Debbie Gitau, a film producer. Thank you so much, Miss Debbie, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Alright, Joy Adams Munene, a filmmaker as well as a studio technician at Dace University. Such a great honor to have you on board today.
Thank you.
And last but not least, we have Dr. Wambui Wamunyu, the head of department at Dace University Media and Film Studies. Thank you for honoring us with your presence.
With your presence. You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Indeed, if we may start with you, Mr. Joy Adams Munene, as a filmmaker, do you think there are enough structures put in place to support filmmakers in the country?
Yeah, I think in fact Kenya is one of the countries that has a lot of freedom of art, and we're not restricted in any way, only that sometimes people don't want to follow the rules.
Alright, and maybe just to get your thought on this, was it a right move for the KFCB, that is the Kenya Film Classification Board, to ban the Rafiki film?
Yeah, I think they are guided by the constitution to do what they did. There are some of the things as Kenyans we are not allowed to do, or is not part of our culture. We have to maintain the high moral standards, and I think, this content being shown on TV would be bad, of course, for our youth. So it's good when we treat that content the way it's supposed to be treated. Wanuri is a very good producer, but I think maybe the film wasn't meant for Kenya, so she should have showcased it somewhere else, maybe not in Kenya.
Indeed, and moving on to our question of the day, are the cultures and values we stand for as a nation retrogressive when it comes to freedom of media and arts in general?
I don't think so. I think actually our cultures are part of the assets in filmmaking industry, and because our culture is broad, then it actually means we can tell more stories that way. And mind you, we have a lot of progress. We have very, very good films that have been made by Kenyan producers and directors. Some have won a lot of awards, so I think we're doing well.
Miss Debbie Gitau, thank you so much for being here today. Maybe if we may just begin by getting your thoughts on the Rafiki film.
Rafiki was a short film by Wahio Kanuri, and I think the film was a good short film, but the producer did not understand her audience, because the film was concerned with gayism, and which is not really rampant in our society today, in the Kenyan society. So if it was for a Western community, I think that would have been selling film, but she didn't understand her audience. Therefore, I think that was the setback of the film of Rafiki.
All right, thank you. Now, still on the Rafiki film, we actually, all of us are aware that it was banned, an action that caused a lot of uproar on the social media pages. But this same film was actually recognized at the film festival in Cannes. Now, what does this action speak of the media and film industry right here in our country, Kenya?
The film industry in our country, firstly, is growing because of the opportunities that we have and the technology that we have been provided with. But in terms of banning, I think Ezekiel Mutua, the chairman of KFCB, has really emphasized on moral values and the Christian values. So in terms of film industry being restricted, I think it's based on the moral value that we have as Kenyans and as Christians. So if any film producer or any creative who wants to begin to create art, they should consider the moral value because of the licensing that is found within Kenya. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Miss Debbie. Now moving on to you, Dr. Wambui Wamonyo. First of all, let us get your thoughts on today's topic before delving into any other question. What do you think about the cultures and values we stand for as a nation?
Well, first of all, I just want to say how excited I am by the growth and state of our film industry. It's been growing in leaps and bounds. I think we are not only producing films locally, but we are being seen internationally, being recognized with awards. We have internationally recognized actresses and actors. And the fact that we have productions that are even being presented at internationally renowned film festivals, that says quite a bit. But even locally, the talent that has just sprouted and emerged is incredible just in the last few years. So having said all that, I think we have a space where our values, I think, are reflected to some extent by the filmmaking, because film is an artistic form and it reflects to a large extent what environment it comes from. So films that are present and presented to our audiences, they reflect who we are and they associate us with things that are sometimes even greater and better than ourselves. So I do not see a disconnect between our value systems and our productions, really. Yeah.
Well, now putting into consideration the creativity and the production of Kenyan films, how can you rate this industry in our country?
I think probably there's mixed results because the very fact that we have a much greater space in terms of the number of people involved in filmmaking, that says quite a bit, and that is, it shows progress. But maybe the quality is not always very even. You know, sometimes you have some very low quality productions against very high quality productions. I don't think quality is necessarily about talent. I think sometimes quality is to do with the funding issues, you know, what kind of equipment and resources are you able to get at any given time. But beyond that, even the structures in which film is done, you know, the distribution processes, the being able to get equipment into the country, and, you know, is the equipment able to be, you know, can it be reached by a lot of people, or is it high-end equipment can only be reached by certain people because it's highly taxed? So those are the things I'm calling the structures. It's not only about just producing the film. It's also about the things that will enable you to do the film. So who is able to do those things at high quality? That's where I think the gap is, that the creativity is there, but sometimes access to facilities, access to resources will result in a mixed bag in terms of quality and so on.
All right, well indeed, thank you so much for being here. Remember, on board was Dr. Ombewa Munyo, the head of Department, Media and Film Studies at Day State University. Secondly, we had Mr. Joy Adams, a filmmaker as well as a studio technician at Day State University. And finally, Mr. Bigitao, a film producer. Thank you so much. Now moving on onto the social media pages. Heading over to Twitter, @_Bere says, I love Kenyan productions. The only problem is that they are not easy and readily accessible as international movies. Well, and on Facebook right now, I see @Ogash Praise, who says, the production of Kenyan films is growing and headed to greater heights. If only they were more available and supported by the government and generally Kenyans, we will now be measuring up to international standards. Well, the Kenyan film industry is growing tremendously, I must agree, and giving rise to great actors, content developers, film producers, and much more greater talent. Now, the regulation of creation, exhibition, and broadcasting of film is quite important, I agree, but let's do this in a way that promotes our national value, because the mixed signals we're receiving are quite confusing, to be honest. We cannot continue to ban Kenyan films with the same theme as international ones that are widely accessible and watched in our country. And I believe the Kenyan government should have a mission that will facilitate the industry for socio-economic development as well as a promotion of culture. This is the only way that Kenya will be established as a film destination as well as measure for international rivalry. Well, that's all we have for you on today's episode. Remember to keep the conversation going on our social media pages. That is @KauluFaith, both on Facebook and on Twitter. My name is Faith Kaulu. Till next time, see you then.